the word at all. But it I don't know. It feels like when a black person is using it towards another black person, it's the same. How is it not still a derogatory word?
Derogatory, but you don't say it.
I don't know. I don't get it. I mean, I kind of.
Slave owners used to call them that, so it's just like a.
So how does right, but are you, and is the word not allowed to?
Okay, I'm gonna say right now, as a teacher, if you want to keep your job, this isn't a threat.
I'm not calling anyone.
I understand.
I can say the word. It's not.
Mr. Boone.
Why are you saying?
No.
I'm trying to say, like, as a student.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about a story that is going viral. Another story, once again, about the N-word and somebody being punished for using the N-word. But this one's a little bit more complicated, okay? Because we got to talk about a teacher that worked at a high school out in Springfield, Missouri, okay, at Glendale High School. Now, this teacher was recorded by another student in class while he was using the N-word while having a conversation with another student about what appears to be a conversation regarding why black folks can use the N-word, okay, and it not be derogatory, but white folks can't use the N-word, right? He was basically making an argument that I've made on my own channel about the N-word. I think it's silly in regards to how society polices the N-word for certain people and not others. However, we know that society as a whole doesn't think like me, right? And unfortunately for this teacher, he got recorded saying the N-word and he ended up being placed on administrative leave and ultimately resigning. However, the twist in this story is that the student who recorded the teacher saying the N-word also got suspended as well. Take a look.
A high school teacher accused of repeatedly using a racial slur in a classroom has resigned. That word from the Springfield Public School District. The district also suspended the student who recorded the video for 3 days. Now, as Joe Hickman reports, the student's family has hired an attorney.
The incident at a Glendale geometry class involved a teacher saying the N-word 6 times in a class discussion where a 15-year-old sophomore named Mary decided to turn on her cell phone and record as another student was warning the teacher of his inappropriate actions.
Is the word not allowed to?
Okay, so I'm gonna say right now, as a teacher, if you want to keep your job, this isn't a threat.
I'm not calling anyone.
I understand.
I can say the word.
Today, a statement from the district said the teacher had resigned and also justified its 3-day suspension of Mary for recording the video, saying it was a clear violation of the student handbook against using electronic devices.
I don't know if it would have happened that quickly without this video. An investigation certainly would have taken longer without being able to just see the video and hear him say the word.
Natalie Hull is a Chillicothe attorney representing Mary and her family.
We've asked them to lift the suspension, let her go back to school immediately, and apologize. Mary saw something that she believed needed to be reported. She captured this as a news event. It was a news event. It's become a news event.
In fact, the Washington Post has contacted Null. And today, the National Radio Television Digital News Association, based in Washington, sent a letter to SPS defending Mary as well. Their president, Dan Shelley, a former SPS student and news director at KTTS, pointed out,
I think it deserves attention nationally because the issue of right to record public officials really came to fruition in the days after the tragic death of George Floyd. And bear in mind, the world would not have seen the full picture of what happened to George Floyd were it not for a 17-year-old girl who stood on the sidewalk and videotaped the entire incident.
Shelley and Null also say they believe the student handbook is too restrictive, Null pointing to a part that prohibits students from video recording acts of violence.
They could get in trouble for capturing evidence of a crime.
I think the handbook policy as currently written is unconstitutional. More than half the U.S. District Courts of Appeal have unequivocally stated that citizens have a right lawfully to record the activities of public officials.
We contacted the teacher, who turned down our offer to speak, and as for the 15-year-old student,
she's dealing with anxiety. She doesn't really understand what she did wrong. It makes me sad because she did bring something to light that needed to be brought to light. She made what I call, and her mother calls, good trouble.
Reporting for KY3, I'm Joe Hickman.
Now, there's a couple angles to this story that I want to touch on, okay? The first angle here is the teacher saying the N-word. We don't know the full context of why this teacher decided that it would be appropriate to say that word in class the way that he said it. He said it with the ER, but it sounded to me like it was one of these typical situations that you see where teachers get annoyed by the fact that somebody in the class was probably using the N-word, okay? And he probably got upset about it, right? And let his personal feelings get in the way of his professionalism and decided to debate a student or to have a conversation with a student about using the N-word while using the N-word to make the point about how, you know, it's kind of silly to police people being able to use the word, especially if you're not using it in a way that is derogatory. That's what it sounds like. However, the student is saying that she doesn't remember how the conversation started, right? She just recorded it after she heard him say the N-word a few times, which again, I find to be fascinating because I did a story before about how a teacher got in trouble. There was actually a whole walkout that happened because a teacher used the N-word while basically telling other students to stop using the word and how bad the word is. He had used the word in that context, and the students got so upset that they demanded the teacher be fired, and they did a walkout over it, right? And most of the time, that is what happens, okay? It reminds me of another story here where a teacher in California got in trouble for using the N-word after a student tried to get smart about the N-word being a Mark Twain book. And she basically let her personal feelings get in the way of her job. Take a look.
We begin tonight with the story new at 6. A teacher caught on video repeatedly using a racial slur during a middle school class in Fontana.
Inland Empire Bureau Chief Rob McMillan has the video and reaction, including how the school district is now responding.
I was just thinking, dang, this teacher's out of her mind.
We're not showing her face or using her name, but this student, who is African American, says she shot this video in her language arts class at Sequoia Middle School in Fontana, showing her teacher using the N-word over and over and over again.
You asked me how to spell it, so go ahead and pronounce it. Pronounce it after.
She was trying to force him to say the word, and she repeatedly kept saying it, and she had a smirk on her face.
Say it.
And how many times did she say it?
Probably, she said it a lot of times, probably like 15 or more.
How did the issue come up? Well, according to several students, the class was reading a Mark Twain novel when someone asked the teacher about the spelling of the N-word. That's what prompted this reaction from the teacher.
The teacher got in front of the class and she was saying that this word is just an English word and everybody can say if she wants to, it's in the dictionary, and that people are oversensitive over the word.
What do you think about that?
Not acceptable.
Caroline Rivera has 2 students at this school. In her opinion, the teacher needs to be disciplined.
Of course, pulling the teacher out. Maybe going through training again.
The Fontana Unified School District would not comment on whether this teacher was disciplined or not, but did provide a statement that read, in part, quote, "While we acknowledge that this derogatory language comes from a novel first published in the late 1800s, and that historical context is important to consider when discussing literature, the district does not condone the language that was used in the video or using that language outside the context of discussing the novel." We reached the teacher by phone, but she told us she did not want to comment on the video. In Fontana, Rob McMillan, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
Yeah, so you seen that, you heard that. We have the same pattern here, okay? Student provokes teacher either by saying the N-word in class, right? Or by asking a stupid question or doing something to prompt a conversation about the N-word. And these teachers let their personal feelings about the word and how they feel like they should be able to use the word get in the way of their jobs. Now, again, I agree with these teachers in principle and the things they're saying, but unfortunately, the rest of society does not agree with me, right, when it comes to my opinion on the N-word. So I would advise these teachers, if they want to keep their jobs, stop taking the bait, right? Like, stop taking the bait from these students when it comes to the N-word. Like, I'm right there with you. We hear the N-word every single day. I can imagine as a teacher, you're hearing the N-word probably 100 times a day, okay? Black students walk in, also Hispanic and Latino students as well, too. Probably some Asians, okay? Maybe some white students. N-word, 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 N-word all day long. I get it, right? And I understand, you know, and some of these teachers who probably use the N-word at home, hey, I want to use it too. But again, you just can't, right? I mean, that's just what it is. It's the easiest, quickest way to lose your job, okay, to be fired for your job as a teacher, to lose the ability to feed your family over a word. That, again, I agree with you in principle. If a certain group of people can say it, then everybody else should be able to say it. Who cares, right? It's just a word. But, again, that's not the society that we live in, right? So if you really want to say it, just say it in the confines of your own home, and then you can say it all you want. Nobody cares, okay? At least me, I don't care. Now, when it comes to the student being suspended for recording the teacher, I disagree with that, right? I don't think that the student should have been suspended for recording the teacher, because I think that, honestly, we should have cameras in these classrooms, okay? Because teachers are in class doing much worse things than saying the N-word, right? Like, they are indoctrinating students with LGBTQ and woke agenda ideology and all types of other stuff. Yeah, I definitely think that there should be cameras in class, okay? And I don't necessarily think that this student should have been suspended for recording the teacher doing something that she felt was wrong, okay? Because teachers do things in class with students that are wrong, and I don't want to have a situation where a student gets in trouble for recording a teacher do something wrong, okay? That should be exposed, okay? We're talking about adults being around kids all day, right? That is something that should be monitored, okay? I don't understand why we don't have mandatory cameras in class already, the same way that we have mandatory body cameras on police officers. It's just amazing. I mean, we really should have cameras in any type of public setting when you have public officials interacting with kids or, the public at large. Yeah, that should be something we should be monitoring, right? So I don't agree with the student being suspended. I think that the student should not be punished for that. It's a difference between using your phone in a way that's disruptive or being on the phone in class, while you're learning or whatever, and taking your phone out to record a teacher doing something wrong or engaging in bad behavior. So, I personally think in this situation that it's unfortunate that the teacher decided to resign because he probably was going to be fired after being placed on administrative leave. But I just think that these teachers just got to be smarter, right? I really don't like seeing these teachers get fired for using the word because they're being provoked by students, right, to say the word, okay? I mean, it's really silly, okay? You just have to be smarter than that, okay? But let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.